Presenter from the BBC children's programme Blue Peter was sacked today after he admitted taking cocaine. Richard Bacon, who's 22, has apologised for his actions.
The year is 1998 and the world of kids' TV is shook. One of the presenters of Squeaky Clean Blue Peter has been fired after a tabloid sting has revealed they'd been taking cocaine. This was a massive story that looked certain to end the career of one Richard Bacon. In this video, we'll look at where he came from, the scandal that shocked a nation, and its aftermath, and reveal why this made Bacon one of the most wealthy people in TV, probably. Firstly, if this is the kind of content you enjoy, please like the video, subscribe and ring the bell as it really helps the channel grow. Firstly, you might think someone named Richard Bacon might be subject to a series of bad puns. But don't worry, this video isn't going to poke fun at him. Richard Bacon was born in 1976 to a middle-class family from Mansfield in the East Midlands. He was privately educated, and after dropping out of university, he joined BBC Local Radio in Nottingham as a reporter. But he had TV in his sights, and he soon joined the fledgling cable broadcaster Live TV. This was before the channel's infamous days of showing Britain's bounciest weather and topless darts. They were trying to be a much more credible operation at the time. But his big break came in 1997 when he became the latest host to take on one of the most coveted roles amongst those looking to break into television on the longest running show on TV, the BBC's Blue Peter. Bacon was an instant hit with fans. He would get up to all sorts of stuff. But then in 1998, just as Bacon's feet seemed firmly under the table, a tabloid newspaper broke a story about Bacon taking illegal drugs. This sent the children's department at the BBC into panic. It was front page news. This left boss of children's BBC Lorraine Hegarty to channel her inner head teacher to explain to the audience his disappearance in a now infamous TV moment.
That Richard has not only let himself and the team on Blue Peter down, but he's also let all of you down badly. So we have decided that Richard cannot continue to present Blue Peter, and he agrees that that is the right decision.
Bacon later told how it was one of his best friends who sold the story to the press and that the pair never spoke again. He told The Guardian it left him a lot more sceptical and cynical about people and that he never saw him again. It looked like Bacon's career was over. No, it looked like Bacon was smoked. That kind of works, doesn't it? The sacking had a perhaps unintended consequence though, because perhaps now, to edgier broadcasters, Bacon seemed like the coolest Blue Peter presenter ever. Channel 4's breakfast show, which offered a more fun alternative to the likes of BBC Breakfast News and GMTV on the other side, saw this as an opportunity. And with one rolled up £20 note, Richard Bacon had made the quickest transition from kids' TV to grown-up TV ever. In 1999, Bacon joined The Big Breakfast, hosting features such as Down Your Doorstep.
Oh, Richard, I'm sure someone will run it better for you.
And proving it's not just this channel that is prone to cheap puns, Shrieky Bacon. He would also go on to host the show.
You're seething about the fact that somebody stole my passport. I imagine that's a criminal offence.
Yeah.
It's something that I'll be pursuing later in the show.
It's often said his presenting style is like that of Alan Partridge. Not quite sure why he gets that label.
Thanks very much. Let's have a look at today's headlines. The Independent, they're held by Maria. A bomb girl, everyone!
Okay, fair enough then. Bacon is more than a typical presenter. It's clear he has an interest in creating formats and innovating television. This first started to become apparent in 2003 when he created the little remembered but unforgettable for those who saw it, Flipside TV. Originally shown on the obscure digital channel Nation 277, it was like a Gillette Soccer Saturday for the evening's TV, with comedians analysing the offering and dipping between the channels. Also kind of like a live version of Gogglebox before Gogglebox. It also provided early appearances of comedians who would go on to wider prominence, notably Justin Lee Collins, who really shined here.
Wilkinson! Oh, John! Hey, what a story! Anne-Marie! Anne-Marie, you've been in a coma for a week. You're back home, you're watching Flipside and Cole Pilkington's won you a phone.
And folks like Sean Locke, before they became panel show regulars, also got airtime. This show would later have a brief run on Late Night Channel 4 and the Paramount Comedy Channel, with the likes of Ian Lee also hosting. Around the same sort of time, Richard Bacon started to secure other TV hosting gigs, including 2 shows for Channel 5, 19 Keys.
Is 19 Keys. One of these 4 contestants could leave this cube £7,500 richer.
And the definitely original format and nothing like Celebrity Big Brother, back to reality. Its USP was using stars from previous reality shows. The only real difference from Big Brother was both the house and the garden were actually inside a studio, and to be fair, it looked really impressive. This is a great moment from the show though.
Like you need... No, don't be an idiot. Don't be a child. No, what this is my show. You Craig! Oh, baby! After all...
Bacon looks genuinely angry here. Surprising as you'd think, with his head for great TV, he'd know this was good for the show. Perhaps it was faux anger. In the 2000s, Bacon also started showing a more serious, newsier side, and began presenting a speech radio show on weekend nights on BBC Radio 5 Live. After a while, he moved to the Capital Radio Group to host a relaunched Capital Radio Drive Time show, before being shunted off to the more alternative XFM. He would later return to BBC Radio 5 Live following a spell on weekday weeknights. He would replace Simon Mayo to host weekday afternoons. During this time, other TV work occurred, including hosting Young Voters Question Time on BBC 3, an occasional spin-off of the famous political debate programme for adult audiences.
Britain is engaged in military action for the first time since Iraq. Welcome to Young Voters Question Time.
After previously having a long-term relationship with fellow former Blue Peter presenter, while she was still on the show actually, Connie Hook, Bacon now has a family of his own. In 2015, he decided to try his luck on the other side of the pond in the United States of America, and he managed to achieve some success, hosting some programming for ABC News before joining National Geographic as host of its long-running Explorer programme. For his first programme, he rambled with a former president of the United States. Things were about to be put into perspective though. In 2018, Richard Bacon came frighteningly close to dying. While flying from the United States back to the UK, he became seriously ill. At first, he was even well enough to post photos of himself on social media, but after landing, his condition rapidly deteriorated. Bacon was taken to hospital and diagnosed with suspected pneumonia. When treatment failed to work, doctors placed him into a medically induced coma. He would spend several days in intensive care, fighting for his life. At one point, his family were told he might die. Remarkably, he recovered, and in keeping with the rest of his career, this episode didn't slow him down for long.
They went from telling me that I needed to be in an induced coma to being in a coma in 4 minutes. And as they said to me afterwards, when I went back several weeks after it happened, they said it wasn't that you might die, we expected you to die. I was the illest person in Lewisham Hospital.
Instead, it became another sharp reminder of how abruptly his life and career had changed more than once, and how he'd managed to survive every time. The NHS had really saved Richard Bacon. Following all that, Bacon turned away from being in front of the cameras on US TV and started developing formats both sides of the Atlantic, including The Hustler, a game show with a traitors-like mechanic, but without that show's success.
It doesn't mean I've got chickens.
Tim looks like someone who would name a chicken
Riot.
I
have to say, Tim looks like a guy that might have a chicken. I'm just saying, Tim. You do look, that's
I like
not an
chickens.
insult. That's a...
In the UK, he reunited Richard and Judy. Well, it was the same Richard at least. In the enjoyable BBC game show This Is My House, and he also created the Jimmy Carr-fronted genre-breaking game show I Literally Just Told You.
Richard Bacon, this show's executive producer, is sacked from Blue Peter in disgrace.
2000.
Blue Peter presenter, they tend to be quite young. Richard Bacon there in Vision.
Didn't know that, okay.
Quite old.
Younger than you.
That's debatable. I've got a plastic surgery team working 24/7 on this.
In 2023, he founded the unscripted entertainment venture Yes Yes Media, with bases in both LA and London. Bacon also obviously thought his new mission was to annoy the Gammons. After previously famously going head-to-head with right-wing comedian Jim Davidson in a Radio 5 Live interview...
Why say sorry and then say I don't mean it? What's the point of that?
Well, because that's what you want me to... Would it be better if you used to say sorry? I just said it.
I didn't ask you to say sorry, I just read out the lady's text.
Yeah, that's real, isn't it? Of course it is.
You think it's made up?
He later became outspoken on issues such as so-called flaggers taking it upon themselves to stick flags up and paint roundabouts all over the place, making appearances on programmes like Newsnight.
If you stick a pole and a Union Jack tomorrow outside your house, I think you're making a statement. And I think that statement is probably that you prefer Britain to be more white.
He also became an occasional cover presenter on Good Morning Britain. 20 years on, in 2018, he was even welcomed back into the Blue Peter family, with fellow former presenter Peter Purvis pinning a badge back onto Bacon to symbolise his return to the Blue Peter family. Not quite sure they ceremonially stripped him of his badge in the first place, but it was a nice token nevertheless. The story of Richard Bacon is an interesting one. What seemed like might end his career was exactly the thing that made him a household name. Some presenters have come through Blue Peter and have gone on to bigger things. Others are only remembered for their time on the show. Without this scandal, it's difficult to know which way his career would have gone. But Richard Bacon made the most out of the situation he'd found himself in, and very possibly benefited from it, which puts him in a very strong position within his chosen industry, and will have likely made him a very wealthy man. If you enjoy this video, please like it, subscribe and press the bell to help the channel grow. And consider supporting the creation of new videos by becoming a channel member on YouTube. And let us know in the comments what your favourite Bacon format is.